everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. Before we dive in, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps more people find these conversations. Now, when Sister Wives fans tuned in for the latest one-on-one special, most were expecting the usual mix, emotional pressure, tense exchanges, and a few long, uncomfortable silences. What many did not expect, however, was the growing sense that something unusual had been happening behind the scenes. Thanks to subtle but revealing comments from longtime host Suki Krishnan, viewers are now starting to piece together a much clearer picture of Kody Brown's mindset during filming. And it suggests that the patriarch of the Brown family wasn't just nervous or trying to protect himself, he appeared to be actively trying to control the narrative. In fact, even a seasoned interviewer like Suki seemed to take notice. According to people close to the production, Kody allegedly walked into the one-on-one special with a list of special requests that went far beyond what's typical for an interview. Suki never outright called them demands, but her careful choice of words, her facial expressions, and even her well-timed pauses spoke volumes to longtime viewers who have watched this family slowly unravel over the years. She hinted that Kody repeatedly asked what topics would be covered, pushed back on how certain questions were worded, and seemed especially concerned about how Robyn would be portrayed compared to his former wives. That immediately fueled speculation that Kody was trying to shield Robyn from criticism, while at the same time justifying his own behavior. What makes this even more interesting is that Suki, who has interviewed the Browns through many emotional seasons, appeared noticeably firmer this time. Calm but steady, she held her ground, as Kody tried to steer conversations away from issues like financial responsibility, emotional neglect, and the painful breakdown of trust with Janelle, Christine, and Meri. Viewers couldn't help but notice the moment when Suki gently asked why he seemed angrier than ever, despite now being in a monogamous relationship with Robyn. Kody visibly bristled. It felt like a topic he had hoped would be softened or avoided altogether. This lines up with backstage chatter, suggesting Kody wanted more context given to his frustrations, repeatedly talking about his sacrifices, often without acknowledging the sacrifices made by the women who stood beside him for decades. Suki's response was fascinating. Instead of confronting him directly about his requests, she let the contrast speak for itself. She asked Kody the same straightforward questions she asked the ex-wives, and allowed his reactions to tell their own story. That contrast was especially clear when the topic of loyalty came up. Kody claimed that respect had to come before love. Suki calmly pointed out that the women had remained loyal for years, even when they felt deeply unloved. The result was an awkward silence, one many viewers felt Kody hadn't prepared for at all. It only strengthened the sense that his special requests were part of a larger attempt to stay in control at a moment when that control was slipping away. Especially when Suki later suggested, in post-special commentary, that every interview required a different approach, subtly implying that Kody's interview demanded more careful handling than most. And while Suki maintained her professionalism throughout, many viewers sensed a shift, almost as if she herself had reached a breaking point after years of watching the same patterns repeat. A calm patience was still there, but so was something else. Resolve. And that's where the larger story really begins to take shape, because Kody's reported requests weren't simply about comfort or clarity. They appeared to be about managing his image at a moment when public opinion has clearly turned against him. Viewers have increasingly accused him of rewriting history, downplaying the emotional labor of his former wives, and positioning himself as the newest victim of circumstances he largely helped create. Suki's quiet refusal to reshape her questions around that narrative may be the most revealing moment of all. By staying steady and fair, she allowed the inconsistencies in Kody's explanations to surface on their own, especially when he spoke about responsibility as if it applied to everyone but himself. Even Robyn, often portrayed as the silent bystander, became part of the tension. When Suki asked whether Robyn's relationship with Kody benefited from the unequal distribution of time and finances, Kody seemed caught off guard. It was a question he didn't appear prepared for, despite his reported efforts to manage the conversation. As the special aired, social media lit up. Viewers praised Suki for her composure and called out what they saw as Kody's controlling behavior. Many pointed out that his discomfort didn't come from being misunderstood. It came from being challenged without the safety net of group dynamics. In earlier seasons, that group setting often allowed him to assert dominance. This time, sitting alone across from a host who wouldn't bend, his attempts at control became part of the story rather than a solution to it. The irony is hard to miss. In trying so hard to protect his image, Kody may have only confirmed the very criticisms he hoped to avoid. Meanwhile, Suki's subtle approach served as a reminder that good journalism isn't about dramatic confrontations. It's about patience, consistency, and asking the right questions at the right time. What viewers walked away with wasn't just another dramatic sister-wives special. It was a clearer understanding of how power, control, and perception contributed to the Brown family's unraveling. Suki's commentary became a quiet but powerful reflection of Kody's ongoing struggle to accept that the story no longer belongs solely to him, and that no amount of special requests can undo what audiences have watched unfold season after season. And as the dust continues to settle from one of the most talked about one-on-one specials in recent memory, it's becoming increasingly clear that what aired on screen was only part of a much larger story. While the special was framed as a chance for reflection and accountability, Suki's carefully chosen words and unmistakable body language suggested Kody entered the process with a very different goal, one centered on control, image protection, and avoiding questions that challenged his role in the collapse of his plural family. This marked a striking change for a man who once presented himself as confident, in control, and largely unfazed by criticism. Now he appeared genuinely unsettled by the idea of facing direct, uninterrupted questions, without the familiar cushion of group discussions or the ability to shift blame in the moment. That pressure showed up almost immediately on screen. Kody interrupted, redirected, and repeatedly reframed questions, clearly trying to guide the conversation back to his preferred talking points. He returned again and again to themes of respect, loyalty, and what he described as his own emotional frustration. What he noticeably avoided, however, was taking real responsibility for the emotional abandonment, financial strain, and broken trust that Janelle, Christine, and Meri described in their own interviews with painful honesty. What made Suki's role especially compelling was her refusal to accommodate those attempts in any obvious way. Instead, she kept her approach steady and consistent across all interviews. That choice only highlighted the contrast between Kody's guarded responses and the women's raw vulnerability. Viewers quickly picked up on that imbalance. While the women openly acknowledged their mistakes, regrets, and moments of doubt, Kody repeatedly cast himself as a misunderstood figure whose authority had been unfairly stripped away. As Suki calmly challenged that framing, sometimes referencing his own words and actions from earlier seasons, his narrative began to feel thinner. After all, those moments weren't speculation. They were part of the public record. And that's where the idea of special requests takes on a deeper meaning. This wasn't just about avoiding certain questions. It was about attempting to shape reality itself. It was almost as if Kody believed that by setting boundaries around the interview, he could also set boundaries around the story viewers have been watching for more than a decade. Suki's subtle reactions, measured pauses, raised eyebrows, carefully neutral follow-up questions became a form of silent commentary. She listened, but she didn't simply accept his version of events without context. That dynamic became especially clear when the conversation turned to Robyn. Even when she wasn't physically present, her role loomed large. Kody repeatedly argued that Robyn had been unfairly blamed for the family's collapse. Suki responded gently but persistently, pointing out the clear differences in time, finances, and emotional support that the other women experienced after Robyn entered the family. Those questions visibly frustrated Kody. Many viewers felt they were topics he had hoped would be handled more delicately, or not at all. And here's the irony that's hard to overlook. In trying so hard to protect Robyn's image through these reported requests, Kody may have unintentionally reinforced the very criticism he wanted to escape, that her comfort consistently came first. As the interview went on, the cracks in Kody's composure became harder to ignore, especially when Suki raised the issue of reconciliation. She asked a simple but pointed question. Did he believe he had done enough to repair his relationships with Janelle and Meri? It was a moment that, according to reports, Kody was particularly uneasy about. And his response showed it. Instead of addressing specific actions or acknowledging missed opportunities, he drifted into broad ideas about betrayal and defiance. The result was a noticeable gap between the question that was asked and the answer that was given. That disconnect became a recurring theme throughout his interview, underscoring the tension between Kody's desire to control the conversation and Suki's commitment to letting viewers see each person's truth as clearly as possible. What makes Suki's approach so effective is that she never directly accused Kody of trying to manage the interview. She didn't have to. His discomfort spoke for itself, especially when placed next to the emotional openness shown by the women. Christine spoke freely about reclaiming her sense of self. Janelle described the quiet devastation of realizing she had spent decades in a family structure that ultimately left her both financially and emotionally exposed. Meri reflected on loneliness and missed chances in a way that carried real weight Kody's apologies simply couldn't match. As viewers broke down the special online, many pointed out that Kody's attempts to frame himself as a victim of disloyalty rang hollow. And part of the reason was that Suki didn't soften her questions to support that narrative. She allowed the contrast in tone, accountability, and emotional awareness to speak for itself, trusting viewers to draw their own conclusions. This dynamic has sparked wider conversations about power, truth, and control in reality television, especially in long-running shows, where cast members can start confusing familiarity with authority. Over time, they may come to believe they have earned the right to dictate how their stories are told. Kody's reported special requests seem to reflect exactly that mindset, revealing a man struggling to accept that the same platform that once amplified his voice is now holding him accountable. Suki's role in this moment can't be overstated. By staying professional and resisting the urge to compromise, she transformed the one-on-one special into something far more meaningful than a simple recap. It became a case study in what happens when control slips away and truth is allowed to surface, not through confrontation, but through calm consistency. As the season wraps up and speculation grows about the future of Sister Wives, one thing is clear: the power dynamics have shifted, and what makes this even more compelling is how Suki's subtle cues have prompted viewers to reassess not just Kody's behavior in this interview, but his entire arc across the series. Moments from earlier seasons are now being re-examined through a new lens: how Kody dominated group conversations, how certain wives were labeled difficult or uncooperative, and how authority was quietly reinforced. With Suki continuing to suggest that Kody entered this special with expectations about tone, emphasis, and emotional framing, it's becoming harder to ignore the pattern. It also becomes easier to see just how deeply invested Kody has been in managing perception rather than addressing the deeper problems at the heart of the family's collapse. That realization has sparked a new wave of criticism online, with longtime viewers arguing that the one-on-one format stripped away his final layer of defense, leaving him exposed in a way he likely never expected. Unlike the group interviews of earlier seasons, where he could interrupt, redirect, or appeal to majority support, the solo setting forced Kody to sit with questions that required real self-reflection. And when that reflection didn't come, the silence said more than any accusation ever could, especially as Suki calmly referenced his own words from past seasons, gently reminding him, without judgment, of the promises he once made about fairness, cooperation, and shared sacrifice. Those promises were now being measured against outcomes that told a very different story. This is where the reported special requests take on almost symbolic meaning. Instead of treating the interview as an opportunity for honesty, Kody seemed to approach it as a negotiation, a chance to reshape the story in his favor at a moment when public sympathy has increasingly shifted toward the women who chose to walk away. Suki's refusal to reshape that reality may stand as one of the most quietly important moments in the show's history. It marked a shift away from indulgence and toward accountability. That shift became especially clear when financial issues came up. This is a topic Kody has often minimized or avoided, yet Suki approached it with steady persistence, asking how decisions were made, who benefited most, and whether those choices truly reflected the family's stated values. These questions clearly made Kody uncomfortable and seemed to confirm that this was an area he had hoped would be handled more gently, if at all. As he stumbled through explanations about shared responsibility and future intentions, the contrast with Janelle's clear, grounded accounts of financial strain and sacrifice became impossible to ignore. It further weakened Kody's attempts to cast himself as the wronged party. What's especially striking is how Suki's approach revealed the emotional imbalance at the core of the family's breakdown. Kody repeatedly framed respect as a requirement for love. The women, on the other hand, spoke about years of offering loyalty without receiving it in return. Suki highlighted that contrast simply by giving everyone the same space to speak, allowing viewers to see how differently those same actions were experienced. That equal footing may have unsettled Kody more than anything else. It removed the unspoken hierarchy he once relied on, placing his perspective alongside, not above, the others. In doing so, it exposed just how fragile his authority had become. Viewers noticed moments where he seemed to expect reassurance or a softer follow-up that never came, suggesting his special requests may have included hopes for emotional validation that Suki intentionally withheld. Instead, she trusted the audience to decide where empathy belonged. That restraint has been widely praised as a turning point for the series. Many viewers believe it allowed the truth to emerge naturally, without manipulation or theatrics. And as discussions continue across fan forums and social media, a growing consensus is taking shape. Kody's discomfort wasn't about being attacked. It was about losing control of a narrative he once shaped with ease. A loss that feels especially sharp when you consider how often Kody accused others of disloyalty, while, at the same time, expecting loyalty from the production itself. That contradiction hasn't gone unnoticed. In fact, it's fueled growing speculation about what's been happening behind the scenes for years. Some longtime viewers are now wondering just how often Kody's preferences may have been accommodated in earlier seasons, and whether this one-on-one special signals a deliberate shift by the network, a quiet message that the era of automatic compliance may be coming to an end. Suki's role in that shift can't be overstated. By standing her ground and refusing to tailor her questions to Kody's comfort level, she modeled the very accountability that has been missing from his version of events. The result was a special that felt less like a recap and more like a reckoning, not driven by confrontation or accusation, but by steady persistence. As conversations around sister wives continue to evolve, it's becoming clear that the most meaningful moments aren't always the loudest or most dramatic. Often, they're the quiet ones, the moments where resistance meets composure, where attempts to control the story are met with calm firmness, and where truth surfaces not because someone demanded it, but because nothing stood in the way. In that sense, Suki's understated acknowledgement of Kody's reported special requests has reshaped how viewers understand the family's story. What could have been just another televised interview became something far more revealing, a mirror reflecting years of imbalance, unresolved conflict, and the real cost of choosing image over connection. And that's why so many viewers walked away not just questioning Kody's choices, but recognizing something deeper, that the most powerful response to control isn't confrontation, it's transparency.